Welcome to Trade of the Week with me, Ntaoleng Lechela. This week, we're putting the spotlight on Blue Label, MTN, and Mr. Price from the JSE, along with global giant Nike. Joining us to share his technical analysis of these counters is Loyiso Mpeta, CEO of Mshindi Bingwa Group Holdings. Loyiso, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. So this is your last Trade of the Week segment for the year, and we're doing some reflection, right? Kicking things off in the telco space with Blue Label Telecoms. They've had a pretty huge run over the year on expectations of the Cell C and bundling and the listing. But looking at what's happened over the past few months, we've seen it on a downward trend. What is the technical picture telling you? Is there more upside?
Yeah, so Blue Label, an interesting one. So we covered it recently, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, after it had that massive run. And when I looked at it, I said we missed that big rally because for a long time the stock was doing pretty much nothing, and I sort of lost interest in it, and then I missed the big rally. So we had that early indication of a trend reversal characterized by this series of higher highs and higher lows. And when we then did the recap, like I say, 2 or 3 months back, the stock had this massive run, and of course the restructuring, the Cell C and bundling, potential listings drove investor sentiment, and we can see how strong and powerful this rally was. So when we looked at it, I said, look, I think it's time to be cautious now. We can see the stock is trading at around 16 Rand a share. It's been a massive run from 2 Rand 35. And from a classic Elliott wave perspective, this is a textbook wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. So if you're not already in the stock at this juncture, probably wait for the pullback for wave 4, and then for the forecast was for more upside for wave 5. And it didn't take much longer for the stock to sort of hit a peak and then start to sell off. So we can see the stock peaked at 18 Rand 36 for wave 3, and we can see how strong this sell-off has been. And we can see also when you look at the price-volume relationship, we can see this candle here, which is what we can call a sentiment or trend change candle on record volume. So what this sell-off tells me, and you can see the volume itself has been pretty consistent. And again, here we've got a lot of volume. When you see a volume spikes like this, it tells me that you have institutional selling. It's not just retail taking profits, it's institutional. So whenever you have institutional selling off the stock and taking profit, you then need to ask yourself, what will bring those institutions back into play? So currently, no signal yet that wave 4 is in place. And ideally, what I want to see to maintain the 5-wave outlook is for wave 4 to terminate above the price territory of wave 1. So that is wave 4 should terminate above 7 Rand 50.
Okay.
So I'll be looking for a bit of a turnaround here. Say once price starts to push back above 11 Rand, then I will say maybe now is time to buy the dip in anticipation for this 5th and final wave. So I'd say just a bit of patience and see again. And now that we have the Cell C and bundling, let's see what the sentiment is now around Blue Label, and let's see how the business performs in the next quarter or two. And I think price will show us the way. But yeah, still currently on the sidelines, sit on your hands and start to wait for price to start turning around before you start nibbling again.
So basically a wait and see game. And I'm wondering whether those institutional investors have maybe went into Cell C.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
All right, let's move over to your next stock, which is still within the telcos space, MTN. Another counter that's, had a big rally this year, where we've seen the turnaround in Nigeria and Ghana bearing fruit. What are you seeing in terms of the technicals picture on that front?
Yeah, so MTN has really been doing well, especially in the data and fintech space. We know mobile money has been doing very well. So when we touched on it earlier this year, late February, I had emphasized that a bottom looks to be in at 70 Rand 43, and this went way back to late 2021 when the stock peaked and then had this a massive bear market. And what I could see earlier this year was this bounce I labeled wave 1 and this correction wave 2. So what I was forecasting back then was that this current rally was the early stages of wave 3. And my price target for wave 3 was roughly around 150 Rand. So I was very bullish on MTN at the beginning of the year. And the stock has not disappointed. We can see the rally continued and peaked just below 180 Rand per share. So the question is now, from a wave count, what am I seeing in terms of this current rally from 70 Rand 43? And I must say it looks like a textbook wave 1, wave 2, and then we have a third wave which also unfolded in a clear 5 waves. So this current pullback, I'm forecasting it as a pullback for wave 4. So again, once we start to see price turning around, then the forecast is for one more move up to complete wave 5, which will then be either a higher degree wave A or higher degree wave 1. So there's still some upside potential in MTN, and I must say the fundamentals are very supportive of the bullish outlook.
So you're still bullish on MTN. Are you not concerned around the court case issues that hit the group earlier this year?
No, not so much. I think MTN has weathered many storms around similar issues in the past. And I think now, just looking at price action, when those sort of issues start to pop up into their client communications, investor communications via SENS, if investors were panicky, you would see that reflected in the price already, and we haven't seen that. So I think the market has pretty much baked that in. And I won't say dismissed it, but it's already factored in.
All right, let's move over to Mr. Price, sticking with SA Inc. Of course, clothing retailers have really had a tough year. I was looking at Mr. Price, which is one of the stocks you're going to chat to us about, as well as Truworths, TFG, and Pepco, all down year to date.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that your pick here, your strongest pick right now, is Mr. Price.
I wouldn't say strongest more than, I think when you look at Mr. Price, well, I suppose you can say one of the stronger. They're very consistent in terms of their market share gain. We're also starting to see some upside now in terms of their diversification strategy into homeware as well as mobile as well.
Yeah.
So I think that diversification outside of just apparel has had a positive impact on the business operations.
All right, then let's take a look at what you were seeing around April and whether that's changed now in December.
Yeah, so very interesting one, Mr. Price, because when we looked at it in April, it was during the time where Trump was causing havoc in the markets with the tariffs. So I emphasized again that going back to July or June 2023, this advance was a textbook wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and then this sell-off was for wave 4. Now you can see wave 4, very strong sell-off, and terminated just above the price territory of wave 1. So this is pretty much a similar setup that I'm looking for in Blue Label, where you have a very strong fourth wave correction. So back then, as you can see, I had a question mark around this wave 4, where I said price has had a decent bounce on good volume at 185.76. So the question is a bottom in place? But I was still tentative, hence I put the question mark. But what we've seen now is we can see that that bounce continued much higher, peaked around 260, and then the stock has pulled back. But now we're starting to see the stock trade a bit sideways, consolidating. But also from a classic technical chart pattern perspective, I'm seeing what is commonly known as a rounding bottom. Now, this is a reversal pattern. So the next sort of key level to watch now is 110.99. And if this level holds, then it means what I'm seeing now with wave 4 now in place, this rally up is for wave 1, a correction for wave 2, and this sort of sideways movement is the early stages of wave 3. So still bullish in terms of the technical outlook, but we can see that, since this low, price has sort of been contained in a, won't say too tight a trading range, but it hasn't been an aggressive rally. So the fundamentals, when you see price action like this, shows that the market is still a bit tentative, but it's more looking for a stimulus to buy rather than a stimulus to sell. So
it'll also be interesting to see how the Black Friday numbers and the festive spending numbers filter through to counters like a Mr. Price. So what you're saying is that you're bullish, right?
Bullish, yes.
Bullish. So you're dipping your fingers at this moment.
At this moment, I think it's a good level to buy. Yeah, I think this rounding bottom pattern is a good enough signal to say the conviction is more on the upside than continued downside.
All right, let's get into your final stock, that being Nike. That company has been battling for years now, like from around COVID times with just sales, and then we saw a new CEO coming through trying to turn things around. Are you buying into that turnaround story? What are the charts saying when it comes to Nike?
Yeah, Nike, the story itself hasn't really changed much in terms of...
Still a solid brand.
It's still a solid brand. But you see, that's the thing with Nike. The brand is solid. I don't think the brand will lose its nature in terms of being a solid brand. But we've seen a sort of massive decline in consumer demand, especially in its key markets in Europe and China. Their inventories have been a mess for a long, long time. And we're seeing also now with the tariff back and forth between China, US, also affecting their business model. And also, with brands like Nike, similar to Under Armour, they have this tendency of, once they hit a peak in terms of what they are good at, they then try to diversify into other areas where they are not the specialists in, and that's where they really get burnt. And that's why Nike, even at this current juncture, has got such an overload of saturated inventory, because they tried to move away from their core, which is sports, into other markets. So how has that filtered into the technical picture? So the last time we looked at Nike was in January, and the larger structure was pretty clear, A, B, with the C wave being an ending diagonal. Though at this juncture, I did say there could be potential, or there is potential, that this fifth wave has not bottomed, but the general structure looks like a solid ABC. So what has transpired since then? So very interesting when you look at Nike from that peak in November 2021, we can see that the stock also, so this downtrend line, we can refer to it as a resistant trend line. We can see that whenever price rallies, it bounces off the trend line, rallies, bounces off the trend line.
Okay.
So as long as price remains below this trend line, we will say that the downtrend is still intact. But what's also very interesting now is we can see Nike had this bottom in 2016, this bottom in March 2020, and now we have price trading within what we now refer to as a support zone. So this is why when I talk of support and resistance, in this instant with the resistance, you can see it's a single trend line, whereas support is a price zone. So it's not a single price level, but it's a price level. Yeah, the support level here, you can see it's a price range. So you've got this low and this low, and then which then gives us a support zone, and we can see where price is currently trading. It's within that support. So this creates a very interesting dynamic where you've got a resistance trend line and then you've got support. So what's happening now is price is trading between two very powerful sort of restrictive zones. Price is trying to break out, but also it could be trying to break down. So what you have here is a sort of a situation where price is now converging between these two sort of resistance levels. Now, what this tends to be is it tends to be a precursor for an explosive move. Now, the question is, will this explosive move be to the downside or to the upside? I must say my bias is to the upside. Why? Because, again, I'm still looking at that ABC structure, and as long as the key level, which is $52.28, holds, again, this is not about being bullish, but my conviction based on the wave structure in terms of the maturity of the bear market. If I'm a betting person, my odds are on an upside breakout than a downside breakout.
I'd like to believe that this one is for, an investor that's a bit more, would like to take on some more risk than the other.
And risk with patience as well, because these types of setups don't generally take or sort of play out within a quarter or two. You might need 3-4 quarters of good earnings results and really showing a turnaround in the business fundamentals. But like I say, looking at the technical picture, my conviction is more to an upside breakout than continued downside.
All right then, Loyiso, thank you so much for your time and sharing your analysis with us today. That was Loyiso Mpeta, CEO of Mshindi Bingwa Group Holdings.